Very good afternoon to everybody, and thanks for clicking on to the 98th edition of the Global Weather and Climate Report. Before we continue with the video, hit that like button, share with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate that. It is a dull enough afternoon. The temperatures have come down quite significantly over the last few days, and we'll get into that in just a second. But a very warm welcome to our good friend Mark Kinnish. I hope you had a wonderful birthday, my friend. I believe you had a birthday back on Thursday, if I'm right in saying that. And I hope it was a very, very pleasant one. Very warm welcome to Sing Splint. And hope you're enjoying your afternoon. And yeah, it's good to be back. I wasn't obviously live streaming last Sunday because my wife and I were down seeing the Callum Beatty down in the Usher Hall in Edinburgh, and it was a very pleasant weekend, I must say. Unfortunately, the bit of a detour on Sunday afternoon. There was a very very nasty accident on the A9, and we had to go via Braemar, so I added on a couple of hours to the journey back north again. But yeah, we'll just continue to see who comes on to the live, and then we'll look at the content. We have currently 9 concurrent viewers at the moment. Hit that like button. I would greatly appreciate that. Let YouTube as well as myself know that you're enjoying the content here in the channel. Ask away any questions you may have. I will do my very best to answer those questions. And yeah, the July Outlook is released. That was released yesterday afternoon as well. The tropical outlook. We have got major Hurricane Beryl in the western portion of the tropical Atlantic. That is heading towards the Leeward Islands. We'll look at the Beryl in just a second as well. Discuss the threat it has on the central and southern portion of the Leeward Islands, because it could have very, very severe hits on those islands. Very good afternoon to Paul James. Good afternoon to Lindsay as well. Thanks for moderating the live stream this afternoon. Mark, is going to rain or can I hang my washing out? Good question. It doesn't look overly promising, I must admit. It is looking a little bit. I would chance it, and then if I'm wrong, then I don't get any dinner tonight. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, it's not looking overly great at the moment actually. So how's everybody doing? How's everybody enjoying their weekend so far? Up to much? What have you got planned for your Sunday dinner? I know that there is a very important football match going to be kicking off in just under an hour's time. So I'm going to try and round this up around about 20 to 5, because I'm sure there will be a few people on this live chat that perhaps want to watch that game, and we'll see how that goes. So Mark Kinnish says, "Hi Paul, did you hear that match in Germany stopped last night due to lightning, hail, and rain? We think it's bad here, nothing compared to there last night." Yeah, I certainly did watch the game last night, Mark, and could hear the cracks of thunder. But also, I noticed at one point the camera was actually looking down on the pitch, and you could actually see the flash bouncing off, not the actual lightning, but the actual flash of lightning in the sky reflected off the pitch, and I think it was around about that time that they actually pulled the plug and suspended play for a period of time until the lightning activity kind of eased off in that area. It has been a really, really bad past several weeks across that region of Europe. Central Europe has really been hit hard by flooding, large hail, damaging hail as well, by the way, and also gusty winds, some localized tornadoes as well. It has been quite stormy in this part of the world in recent times. So yeah, Paul James says 18 Celsius here, and sun has come out down in sunny Hampshire. Beautiful part of the UK, I must say, Paul. I happened to visit there a few years ago, but also when I worked with my previous company, I used to travel out of Portsmouth across to Cannes in France, and then drive down to Lorient to deliver fish, came off the boat at Loughinver in the Northwest Highlands, and then I drove it down to France. It was I must admit it was a pretty good job. It was quite enjoyable. So yeah, let me just continue to wait and see here. We've seen mentioned Sink Splint, Mark Kinnish, Birthday Boy, Lindsay, Paul James. I know my dad, David Vogan, is his birthday is coming up on the 4th of July. Every single year, he always reminds me what day that is. I know it is Independence Day. Very, very big weekend coming. I think it's next weekend that actually the 4th of July weekend is. I don't think it's this weekend. I think it's next weekend because the 4th of July is on the Thursday this upcoming week. But obviously, a lot of people outdoors. I think there's been 4 lightning deaths recorded so far in the United States, slightly below average, but obviously you get a big weekend, people having barbecues or cookouts, as they say over there, and you have a lot of thunderstorm activity as well at this time of the year. It is a very, very active time of the year now across the lower 48 when it comes to thunderstorm activity, especially when you've got plenty of heat. You have these thunderstorms that kind of spin around the the area of high pressure, and that area of high pressure essentially started off back in May, early June in the western United States, and then moved eastwards. And then we've seen it kind of the core of the high kind of shifting back and forth between East Coast and the Plain States here, an extension further west also here. So I'm kind of delaying a little bit here because I want to try and build up the numbers here, maximize the concurrent viewers before we get into the meat and bones of today's content here. But as I keep saying, could you please hit that like button? I would greatly appreciate that. It certainly helps spread the word through the YouTube platform, and it increases the reach of the channel as well. So it would be very much appreciated. Hello to Paul Farwell as well, or Farwell, should I say. Very good afternoon to you, Paul. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday afternoon. Hello, Mark. Do you think we will see any more significant heat this summer? Very, very good question, Paul. Do check out the July Outlook. It's been released on markvoganweather.com. Simply Google markvoganweather.com or put it straight into the search bar, and you'll be able to pull up the website, and you can check out. That's the latest article that's been released. We will talk about the July idea that I have briefly in today's video, but also there's quite a lot of written material. There's the charts, etc., that shows. I personally think that we have a very, very similar type of July coming up to what we've seen in the month of June. So it looks as if it's going to be slightly below average in terms of June in the UK and Ireland, warmer than average central and eastern portions of Europe here. The core of the high during the month of June actually sat bang over the Atlantic here, and then we had troughiness. We had a predominantly west to northwesterly flow through at least 20 or so days of June overall. We obviously did see a surge of heat during the course of last week that allowed 2 straight days above 30 Celsius in the UK, 3 days above 28. For us up here across the north, it was literally a one, at the very most, 2-day affair. 27.3 was the highest temperature recorded in Scotland, and that was at a Boyne one day, and then it went back to about 13, 14 for a high. We had a frontal system moving in with cloud and outbreaks of rain that killed the heat across the north, especially across parts of Ireland and Northern Ireland as well. The heat lingered on a little bit further across England and Wales here, but then eventually the temperatures have been coming down through the course of the weekend. Let's have a quick look and see actually what the current temperatures are looking across the British Isles here. So at the moment we've only got mid-teens at very best across the north, 17 at the Dalcross Inverness Airport, and then down into the central belt between 15 and 18 Celsius between Glasgow and Edinburgh. Then further south, gone are those upper 20s that we've seen across the southeast in recent days. We're only at between 14 on the coast at Weybourne to around 21 Celsius at London Gatwick Airport at this moment in time here. So much fresher conditions back in play once again. Across Northern Ireland as well, I think 18 looks as if it's the highest temperature at Castledirg in County Tyrone. And then down across the Republic of Ireland as well, we've got the 13 Celsius at the coast, 18 Celsius across parts of County Cavan. So yeah, back to fresh conditions as we move out of June and into the month of July, summer's second month meteorologically speaking. Quite a divide across the continent at the moment. These are the current temperatures. You can see here that we've got the 30s in parts of Poland, down into the usual hotspots into the Balkan region, Greece, western portions of Turkey. Turkey not quite as bad. You still have 37s. Notice here down in the southwest of the country here, but further east, you notice here that we've got a little bit less heat, with the exceptions of far southeastern Turkey, where we've got 38 Celsius at the moment here. But that is quite a contrast here. Much fresher conditions in the west of the continent, hot conditions across the east of the continent here. So anyway, we have got quite a quiet afternoon. 17 concurrent viewers at the moment here on the live chat. Hope everybody is enjoying their afternoon. I've kind of refreshed this just to see if there's any more comments here. Did I say hello to Adam Blunsden? I don't know if I did. Hello, Adam. Thanks very much for clicking on this afternoon. Oh, Mark says his birthday was Friday, so I do apologize for that. I thought it was Thursday. Yeah, because I actually gave you a birthday wish on Thursday, and it was for the next day, so I'm getting a little bit confused on my old age. Yeah, hello to Jim Bob. Very good afternoon to you, Jim. Hope you are enjoying your afternoon, my friend. In just a second, we are going to look at what is going on around the world, given the fact that it is the 98th edition of the Global Weather and Climate Report. And obviously, we do have the England game coming up at 5 o'clock, and I know many people will probably want to be watching that, so I am not going to run on too long this afternoon. And certainly we have got plenty of things going on at the moment to speak about. Certainly our friends down in the Leeward Islands, which is pretty much the kind of divide between the Caribbean Sea and the open Atlantic. We have got an historic Category 4 hurricane moving towards the central and southern portion of the Lesser Antilles, and that could have major implications. We have never seen a system rapidly intensify in the month of June in the Atlantic Basin on record, certainly in recorded history. We don't know what happened before. Satellites were around, of course, and it is likely that has happened at some point in the past, but certainly in the modern times, we have not seen a Category 3 or 4 hurricane exist in the Atlantic Basin in the month of June. This is the first time that we have seen that taking place for this early in the season. The name Beryl, by the way, actually extends all the way back to the 1980s, and it'll be interesting to see when all is said and done, when Beryl does her work on the Leeward Islands and wherever beyond that. It'll be interesting to see whether they retire the name, because I would not be surprised. Major hurricanes that cause death and major destruction tend to be retired afterwards, and the name Beryl has been existing for near enough the same amount of time that I've been on this earth, which is 1983. So that could be quite a big deal if they happen to retire that name after this system. Hello to Joyce Vogan. I hope you're enjoying your afternoon and having a good day. Hi Mark, all is well down here in Glasgow. Hope you are well. Weather not that great. Take care. And same to yourself. Yeah, it's a pretty mixed bag, I think, across many portions of the UK and Ireland. Hello to the Sandazoo, I think it is. Sandazoo 93. Very good afternoon. Whereabouts are you tuning in from, Sandazoo 93? I hope that is the right pronunciation. Always squirm slightly when I see something a little bit more interesting in terms of name. I tend to make a bit of a twit of myself when it comes to pronunciations. And we'll wait and see what happens here. Mark Kinner says, I think this summer is a back and forth one you said would happen similar to 2019. Yeah, I think it's going to be the case as well. Certainly, there is no real heat to speak about in the next couple of weeks, I'm afraid. We are going to see heat building across Southern Europe, Eastern Europe. That has been the case so far, actually. And I think we're going to see a trough over the west of Europe here. We'll touch on the July outlook. That's going to be in more detail come tomorrow. We're going to look at that in more detail in the European outlook tomorrow's video. So I'm just going to kind of glaze over it quickly. So anyway, this is the latest CDAS 0.5 data for the month of June. So we're obviously in the final day of June, and essentially this is where the averages are going to wind up. This is where it's going to end in terms of warmer versus colder than average. You notice the majority of Eurasia is warmer than average, with the exceptions of northern Russia, parts of southern India, where we've had more in the way of cloud and rain, southwesterly winds. That mascarene high has been kind of driving more southwesterly winds over the Arabian Sea and into the Western Ghats. We've seen heavier rain now starting to build up with the upslope effect, enhancing the heavy rainfall in the western chain of mountains here down that western flank of India. So with rain comes below average temperatures further north, where the clouds and the rain hasn't reached as much, especially over central and northwestern India. We've still seen above average temperatures into the 40s here. We need to get that monsoon to continue to move northwards to then start to bring that temperature down somewhat. Southwestern China still below average. Far eastern Russia, if you notice here, colder than average. Japan warmer than average. Not far northern and eastern China largely warmer than average, with the exceptions of southeastern. That Mayan front, Manchurian front as well. Summer rains that naturally start to kind of build at this time of the year. That frontal system kind of can get stuck in place, and where it does, it just rains and rains and rains, and you see flash flooding, etc., etc. This is can be a very dangerous time as well as a good time in terms of getting that moisture in, especially places like India, for example, but other parts of Asia as well. You've got that monsoon that starts to kick in. Look at Canada, very, very cold compared to average here, especially across the heart of Canada, across towards British Columbia. We've had the firmly below average temperatures. Rains have been quite significant in places. United States, largely warmer than average, as you can see here. We've had quite a lot of heat building over the United States, but also systems running into the north of the United States. We've seen unbelievable flooding, upwards of 18 inches of rain falling over the course of last weekend. Places such as Spencer, Iowa. So I had South Dakota, parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and into Iowa that we've seen essentially towns underwater. Devastation to crops and agricultural, aspects that go into that as well, but also properties that have been essentially destroyed due to floodwater. Very devastating scenes coming out of parts of the upper Midwest. While we've got some places that are seeing flooding and rivers at record crest in recent times, we've also seen drought worsening eastern parts of the United States, where the high has been building. Obviously, when you've got hotter temperatures, you've got increased evaporation as well. So you've got places that are seeing flooding, you've got places that are seeing drought conditions, and where the drought is holding, that is likely to be where you're going to see the heat. And I think the Central Plains states is going to be the core of where the heat is going to anchor itself during the course of July here. We're going to have a high over the North Pacific, over the central United States, and then I think we're going to also have a high pressure over the central North Atlantic. Now that may extend a little bit towards the UK and Ireland here. All in all, we're going to have a westerly flow, and temperatures are going to be subdued for the time of the year, I'm afraid, folks. So this is by the way, our friends down in Australia, some places across parts of Victoria and New South Wales last weekend had some of the coldest temperatures in June for 30 years. So very significant cool spells, cold days, cold nights. We've seen parts of the alpine region of southeastern Australia getting major snowfall. We've got some very cold air coming off Antarctica that's been crossing the southern ocean, and that has been driving some bitterly cold air into parts of southeastern Australia. Notice here we've got below average southern Queensland into New South Wales and into Victoria, Tasmania as well. But we've got a fairly warm central and western portion of Australia here. We've got a warmer than average across New Zealand as well. Africa, the majority of Africa is warmer than average, but we do have cool to the south of the equator over parts of Namibia, Tanzania, for example. Geography sometimes isn't 100% in this part of the world, if I'm being completely honest with you. South America continuing to run firmly warmer than average. So Sandazu is from Sweden. So thanks very much for tuning in. As always, it is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good afternoon where you are in Sweden. What's your weather like? It looks as if we've kind of cooled things down up in Scandinavia, if I'm right in saying. UFO computers also. I hope any pollen sufferers in Scotland faring better than us in the south of England, southeast. Yeah. My wife suffers from hay fever. She has been suffering, I must admit, in the last little while or so here. I think even up here across the north, when tend to find UV and pollen count a little bit lower than what we have in the south of the UK. She's still been pretty miserable of late. Joyce, hi Mark. Oh, I've already, I've already said that that question here. Let me just see here. Given realised. Adam Blunson said Mark MJO is going for 5 and 6 into the second week of July. Do you know, Adam? I actually noticed that that it's going into phase 5 and 6, and usually phases 4 and 5, in my opinion anyway, tends to drive more region over Europe. But I'm just struggling to see that. Now let's have a look. Actually, right. Let's have a look and see what the models are indicating. So this is precipitation. And this is over the 30 days coming up. So this is from the end of June right the way through till Monday the 29th of July. And in terms of a global view, we've got a lot of rain through Indonesia. If you notice here, Eastern Australia is getting quite a decent soaking of corn. This is the ECM weeklies. Look at the Central Africa region here around the equatorial belt. So the African easterly jet is going to be ramping up. We've got a fairly robust West African monsoon. We've obviously seen some big waves coming off the African continent here, hence one of them becoming Hurricane Beryl. We've got obviously quite a wet look across India, so that's good news as well, because we've got quite an active phase of the MJO in this region of the world, Indian Ocean extending up into the Indian subcontinent, and also the maritime continent, which takes into account southeastern Australia, Indonesia, etc., etc. Notice here that we don't have a heck of a lot of rainfall. It's still quite suppressed, still just to the north of the equator over the Atlantic, but we do have some pretty moist conditions through the Caribbean, Central America, into that southwestern corner of the Gulf of Mexico, extending into eastern parts of Mexico. We've got a wet look across the upper Midwest of the United States, East Coast as well, drier than average central and western portions of the United States. Canada looking quite dry, especially across the southern prairies. It looks as if we've got some fairly dry conditions. Alaska looking wet than average. The far north of Canada, parts of Greenland looking wet than average. In terms of the UK, by the way, we have got a dry look extending from Spain and Portugal up through France and into the UK. Let's look at the UK specifically. And you can see here that it's showing a dry south, wet north. Look at mainland Europe as well here, especially across that southeast. The drought's starting to worsen. I think that's where your ridge is going to go, by the way, as we move through the course of July. Looking quite wet for Sandajú, and that's probably killing the pronunciation, by the way. I do apologise. Please don't be offended by that. But it's looking quite wet up across Sweden and the wider Scandinavia region. So looking quite interesting. Ben Jones Evans, hello, very good afternoon to you. Afternoon, Mark from Winchester, South UK. It's nice and cool temperatures today compared to the last few days. Certainly was down where you are. Plenty of heat to speak about. And if you're a lover of heat, you would have been gutted at the fact that the heats came and it's just kind of disappeared once again. Jim Bob says 14 Celsius here in Northern Ireland. Whereabouts in Northern Ireland? Oh yeah, I was born in Newry, but I moved away from here, from Newry, sorry, when I was 4 years of age. So yeah, even though I've still got the accent, probably because of my mom and dad, that I've still managed to keep the accent. But I moved away and we moved to Scotland in 1990, and ever since I've been kind of moving. It feels a wee bit of a nomadic lifestyle I've had in recent years, moving here, there, and everywhere. Here in fairly southern Sweden, quite rainy today. Right, okay, that's quite interesting. I appreciate your feedback. So anyway, this is a in terms of Europe precipitation of the ECMWF weeklies over the next 30 days or so. Let's go back to the world view and let's look at the upper air pattern because this is quite important with regards to July, not just across the UK, Ireland, and Europe, but also looking at the hemispheric pattern where the heat domes are going to set up through the next month or so will be quite interesting to see. We'll look at the upper heights and then we'll look at the temperature anomalies underneath. So this is what the upper heights are looking like of the ECMWF. You can see here the strung ridge core centered on the southern portion of the Aleutian Island chain, and then we have got a little bit of negative, not negative, but the lower heights across the North Pacific to the south east of Alaska. Then we've got a core of high pressure kind of thing. It looks as if it's kind of slightly positioned itself more towards the western portion of the United States here, which is quite interesting. Then we've got a little bit of a drop off in the height field across the Great Lakes in the northeast. Then we've got another. This is exactly what I'm thinking. The high centered bank slap over the Atlantic, where that core of warmer than average is sitting. That's where I think our positive. That's where our high is going to be positioned. And unfortunately, because of that, we're likely, and it's showing it, we're likely to see a negative over the UK, or at least over the northern half of the UK. So what does that constitute in terms of temperature anomaly? Well, this is what it's looking like here for the next 30 days in terms of temperature anomaly based on this upper air pattern. Looks as if we've got reasonably warm conditions across much of Canada here. So the areas that are seeing, a good 5-6 Celsius below average for the month of June in parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, even British Columbia as well. Looks as if we go warmer than average, colder than average across Alaska. If you notice, pretty much the majority of the lower 48 looks as if it's going to be warmer than average. But look at Mexico. Remember, we've had some brutal heat, drought conditions in Mexico, increase the rainfall. You then see the temperatures coming down, and that is exactly what we're seeing. Looks as if South America, by the way, is going to start to see cooler temperatures compared to what we've seen. And Patagonia, for example, has had very cold conditions during the month of June. Look at especially down across this region, southern portions of Chile and Argentina. We've got a fairly significant 5-6 Celsius below average for the month of July. Bear in mind it's their winter time now. Western Australia below average versus a warmer than average. East of Australia, look at India, where you've got that monsoon now starting to increase. We're seeing the temperatures coming down here. That will be welcome news, I would imagine, for our friends in India. Southeastern portions of Asia is also cooler than average because it's wetter than average. Across Africa, we've got a cool. You notice here that the area of cool is now starting to lift a little bit further north. Once you get into the month of July and then beyond that, that is when we have the most northerly position of both the subtropical high pressure belt that circles the world. It anchors over the North Pacific, over the United States, over the Atlantic, and over Europe. Obviously, you get less in the way of rainfall, more in the way of sun, and more in the way of heat across the continent at this time of the year. And that line of intertropical convergence zone then migrates to its most northerly position as we move into July and August. I think the optimum time is around probably early August. That is when you traditionally see everything at its most northerly during the peak of the summer. Notice here, warmer than average across Greenland here. But look at the UK, and this is the nag, because this would actually be cool June and cool July, and then we've only got August to contend with if you're a lover of heat. If you don't like hot weather, this is probably an ideal summer actually, because it doesn't look overly wet, if I'm being truthful with you. June is likely to be cooler than average, but also drier than average, I think, here. So let me just see. There's 26 concurrent viewers at the moment here. Very good afternoon. If you're just joining, please hit that like button. I would greatly appreciate it. It lets myself and YouTube, more importantly, it lets them know that you are enjoying the content here on the channel. I'm continuing to strive to deliver a unique, unbiased, unhyped product here on YouTube. And there is a lot of work going on. 7 days a week there is content. Tropical Outlook, 25 minutes of speaking about the tropics. If you're interested in the tropics, you can check that out. I will be doing a tropical outlook over the next 24 hours because we have got Hurricane Beryl, category 3, if not already a 4, may hit the Leeward Islands in the next 24 hours as a 130-mile-per-hour hurricane. The good news is it's a very small system. The circulation is not that large. So therefore, yes, you've got major impact where the eye wall moves across the island chain. But the good news is, 400 or 500 miles away from that center, it could be sunshine and it could be completely clear and calm conditions. That is the thing about hurricanes. We've got the Dumpster 1961. A very good afternoon to you from Eastern Suffolk. Remains dry here despite a shower this morning. I think parts of the southeast is starting to turn a little bit crisp, maybe a little bit brown, given the fact that there's actually been a deficit of rain during the month of June. Now, that's probably welcome news in terms of being sick and tired of the rain. We've had a drier than average month, and it looks as if July might end up being quite dry as well. So anyway, that is the temperature anomalies over a 30-day period. I know that's a long period of time. There's going to be variables in that as well. Let's keep that in mind as well. By week, we will see fluctuations in the ridge trough pattern, etc. But all in all, it looks as if the July outlook is proven going to be quite interesting. This is the current infrared satellite image from a global perspective, and right away the thing that catches your eye is Hurricane Beryl, just off to the north of South America here. We've got a frontal system here in the eastern side of the United States. Big thunderstorms, parts of New York City. The skies were lighting up big time over the last few days as systems came in a cold front, moving out of the Great Lakes towards the east coast of the United States, bringing some pretty severe weather. We've also got, of course, severe weather across parts of Europe at the moment here. Look at the cloud over India. That is the monsoon now starting to show its hand, now starting to migrate further north. We've got a lot of cloud cover over Indonesia, and that is the heavy rains associated with an active phase of the MJO. It doesn't look as if we've got a lot of cloud cover, probably clear skies and cold conditions in parts of Australia. In fact, let's have a look and see what the temperatures are like currently in Australia. So trying to mix things up, trying to show you things that are somewhat different to what it's trying to make it less samey, trying to make it where we're looking at different things and keeping it fresh and interesting. So we've got plenty of 20s at the moment across the north, but down across the southeast corner, we've got some fairly colder Tasmania, southeastern portions of the country here. Relatively fresh conditions across the southwest. Bear in mind it's winter. We need to keep that in mind. The temperatures, single figures largely across New Zealand at the moment as well. And then obviously you get towards Indonesia, you've got the tropics, you've got plenty of heat. Let's look at our friends in Brazil. All being well, my wife and I will be visiting Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. We'll fly out, hopefully, I say hopefully, all being well, on the 5th of August, because it happens to be somebody's a rather big birthday coming up, and I don't want to actually tell you the age of her, but my wife and I are going to celebrate her birthday. That will be on the 9th of August is our birthday, and let's have a look and see what the temperatures are looking like. So certainly plenty of cold conditions the further south you go over the continent. Near the equator, you've got plenty of heat to speak about here. Temperatures in Rio at the moment is a fresh 19 Celsius. So what about Hurricane Beryl? This is how it looks on satellite imagery at this moment in time. So look at the nice concentric look, a rather vicious looking system at that. Well organized, good symmetry around it, which means that we've not got much in the way of wind shear, drier intrusion, etc., etc. It looks as if we've got near optimum conditions at the moment. Pushing west at around what speed is it actually going at the moment here? Let's get the current conditions, the current situation here with regards to Beryl. So this is the position here. There's the Leeward Islands or Lesser Antilles. Let me see here what the National Hurricane Center is suggesting. So at this moment in time, 115 miles an hour, which makes it a weak Category 3. It is expected to continue strengthening. Pressure at 968 millibars here, moving in a westerly direction here at 18 knots or 21 miles per hour, and it is expected to become a Category 4 system as it continues to move west over the next few days here. So the official forecast projection is for it to move into the central and southern portion of the Leeward Islands as a major hurricane during the early hours of tomorrow morning. It looks like here it's either, yeah, it looks as if it's going to be due into this region at around 8 a.m. local time, and it's going to maintain major status all the way to the south of Jamaica here. Now, the important aspect is, and I made mention of this in the Tropical Outlook yesterday, that the stronger a system is, the more it grabs the upper levels of the atmosphere, its circulation. It becomes a taller system as it strengthens, coming nice and tightly wrapped center. The core of the strongest winds is around the eye wall, which is just that ring of a deep convection around the center, around the eye itself. In the eye, it's calm conditions, the sun shining, but the worst conditions of the system is within the eye wall itself. And if we look at the eye wall on the infrared here, let's play it back. You can see here the dark blacky colors represent the coldest, highest cloud tops. You've got a lot of heat generated around this eye wall itself. That is where your 115 mile per hour sustained winds are residing. And the problem is, one of those islands is likely to see that eye going right over during the early portions of tomorrow morning. So we are going to get sadly devastating scenes coming out of parts of the Greater Antilles over the next, or Lesser Antilles, sorry, in the next couple of days here. So our thoughts and our prayers are with these folks down there. Now, looking at the global models here at the moment, there is very, very strong consensus. Look at how tight all those model members are as it cuts through. It looks like the far southern portion of the Leeward, so St. Lucia, Dominica. I need to look at a map to actually get you the geography here. I do apologize for that, but it's going to cut through the southern portion of the Leewards here to the north of Aruba and the north coast of South America. It's going to go right into the central portion of the Caribbean, known as the graveyard, by the way, because what you tend to find is increased shear and also increased dry air. So it looks very likely that the system will eventually start to weaken as it moves across the central Caribbean. And it looks as if it's going to make a beeline for the Yucatan Peninsula, maybe even scooting into the Bay of Campeche before its demise here. But certainly this is a big deal here, and it will be a major hit. And like I've already said, I will try and do a tropical outlook talking a little bit more about this in the next little while. Very good afternoon to Steffi Adcock here. Thanks for tuning in, Steffi. I haven't seen you in a wee while, so I hope you're doing okay. ITCZ is at its most northerly in July. Right, okay. I actually thought it was August, if I'm being honest, Steffi, because that is when you tend to find the peak of the hurricane season. So you've corrected me, because I personally thought it was August, to be honest with you. But very interesting stuff. Always good to be corrected. So yeah, let me just see if there's any other comments here, because we are going to round up, because I know there's a lot of people that want to tune in to the football at 5 o'clock. Did you see the Lightning? Did you watch the Germany versus Denmark game last night? What a Lightning display! Crazy stuff, wasn't it? So let me see here if I have forgotten anything else. So big July 4th holiday coming up in the United States. A lot of heat to speak about, record breaking heat in some areas, lots of thunderstorms. This is a very, very active time in terms of thunder and lightning at this moment in time across the United States here and across many areas. Given the birthday wishes to both David and to Mark. Mark's birthday was back on Friday. David's birthday is next Thursday. Hope you have a good birthday when it comes. And let me just see if there is anything else to speak about. I don't think there actually is. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of round things up. 23 concurrent viewers. Before you leave the live chat, I would greatly appreciate it if you haven't already done so. Hit that like button, and have you subscribed? Are you a lover of all things weather? If you are, then I hope this is the channel for you, because we'll look at the UK, Ireland, Europe. But as you know, if you've been watching, we've also been looking at the global picture as well. Lots of extremes going on around the world in the last little while or so. Finally, let's have a look just real quick, because I almost did forget. And let's have a quick look at Thierry Goose's Twitter page here, because he does a great job at providing lots of stats and records that are falling around the world. Him and Maximiliano Herrera is probably the two Twitter handles that I would highly recommend in terms of world news. So actually, this tweet here back on the 26th of June, Punta Arenas in Chile, the world's southernmost city with more than 100,000 inhabitants. It's at 53 degrees south, is experiencing its coldest June since records began. On the 21st of June, the station recorded minus 14.7, a new monthly record and the second coldest temperature ever in this location, behind minus 18.7, July 2nd, 1992. So that's quite interesting to know here. We have also seen by Jim Yang based in China this morning, the lowest temperature at Tucson was 34.7. Imagine a minimum temperature of 34.7 Celsius, which is the highest record for the lowest temperature in June in China. So they've just recorded the hottest June night in China so far. Also, a minimum temperature of 100 degrees or 99.6 Fahrenheit to be exact, in Furnace Creek in Death Valley. So obviously Death Valley, one of the hottest places in the world, if not the hottest place, recorded a nighttime temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 Celsius yesterday. 1 degree Fahrenheit from the June record set in 2016, 2021. We had a minimum temperature in Phoenix, Arizona of 95 Fahrenheit or 35 Celsius. New monthly record of the highest minimum, breaking 93, set back in 1990, and 2 degrees below the highest temperature ever at nighttime there. An historic day, this was on June 27th, historic day in Algeria, 50.3 Celsius was recorded at Uruguay. That is the pronunciation I'm going to say anyway. New June national record was set in Algeria. We also had an incredibly mild night in parts of Scandinavia, 24.4 Celsius, highest temperature ever recorded in June for the nighttime minimum in Norway. So our good friend Sanda Dew in southern Sweden, have you experienced any particularly warm nights in recent times? Certainly your country neighbouring seeing a temperature no lower than 24 Celsius. Hot day in the Baltic states here, 34 Celsius In Lithuania, Latvia, 32.9 Celsius. Warm day in northwestern Canada, 30 Celsius at Ivavik National Park in Yukon, only 0.1 Celsius below its monthly record there. So Algeria, again, temperatures into the 50s. Very, very hot conditions. It was actually just, I think it was yesterday, exactly 3 years ago, when we seen a heat wave in Canada that's produced a temperature at Lytton, British Columbia of 49.6 Celsius, which was a new all time record for Canada. It blew away the old record, in fact, that was set in Saskatchewan. I can't remember what year that was. And unusually hot nights in Central Europe. So we've had, as well as thunderstorms, flash flooding, large scale damage and winds, etc., etc. We've also had heat. That has also been fueling the severe weather that we've seen across Central Europe. Temperatures in Austria, minimum temperatures no lower than 25.9 Celsius in a couple of spots. In the Czech Republic, 25.0 Celsius. And we have been seeing some remarkable heat in parts of the Middle East, temperatures into the 50s here as well. So yeah, let me round things up. Sandeju said, I know that's not the right pronunciation. I do apologise for that. Yes, the past couple of days have been 25 plus and very humid before dropping a bit, and I suppose it did drop because of the rainfall also. So let me just quickly check through, and then we will round things up. Have I forgotten anybody? So yeah, we'll call it quits at that. Hope you enjoyed today's content. Like, share, and subscribe. You know the drill by now. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, your weekend, and I will be back next time at 4 o'clock next Sunday afternoon for the next live stream. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow with the European Outlook, where we will discuss the July Outlook. That also is linked in the description below, so you can check that out at your leisure also. Have a great afternoon, folks. Bye-bye.